Hello, and welcome to Next Up with Naming St. Louis. I'm your host, Will Huston. I'm the Marketing and Technology Chair of Naming St. Louis. And on this podcast, we're here to explore the stories, experiences, and insights of dynamic professionals making strides in their careers. We'll be speaking with those who are on a journey of growth and advancement. Our goal is to inspire, inform, and connect you with incredible talent shaping the future of the communications industry. Thank you for joining us today. Let's introduce our next guest.
William Huston is a sales engineer, network consultant, and author, bringing over a decade of expertise in network and sales engineering to every conversation. He specializes in designing future-proof network solutions for mid-size to large carriers, combining deep technical knowledge with sharp communication skills to deliver strategies that fit each client's unique needs. William also channels that expertise into the written word as the author of The Quantum Node, a book that reflects his forward-thinking approach to the future of networking and technology. Beyond the technical work, William carries a strong commitment to community. He actively participates in professional development initiatives aimed at growing the next generation of tech professionals, while also using the skills he's built throughout his career to open doors for others just entering the field.
Welcome to Next Up with Naming St. Louis. This episode is going to be a little different. We have some new developments and things are changing a little bit. So I'll actually be the one being interviewed this time. So I'm going to actually pass it over to the host of this show, Cynthia Newell. Hey, Cynthia.
Hey, well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of Next Up. I am Cynthia Newell, the Vice President of our Name It St. Louis chapter, and I'm excited to dive into a good conversation with Will. You all have seen Will. He's brought us some really good content, some really good interviews with his guests, and very thought-provoking interviews. And so I'm excited to pick his brain because he's a very smart individual. So buckle up and then get ready to enjoy this episode. And so my first question for you, Will, is your career. It sits at the intersection of deep technical expertise and client-facing communication. Can you walk us through how you learned to bridge those two worlds and why that skill set became your edge?
Yeah. So to answer that question, I'll kind of start back a little bit. I pretty much got into the telecommunications industry the way a lot of people did. I started in the help desk. I was taking calls from people who were having issues with just sending emails and, just trying to get on the internet and do regular things. I've always sort of been an outspoken person. I've always been a person who, had pretty good communication skills. So I came into it that way. And then I learned all the technical stuff on the back end. And I moved through my career. I was in, the help desk. I moved from that portion of things into network operations, and I picked up all the technical nuances that it takes to be an engineer. And I found myself sitting in a room full of people who weren't as much outgoing. They weren't kind of like me. They were the people who started off in tech. They learned all this stuff, and then they came directly into the technical dungeon, right? The basement where, technical people go in and that's it. And so I found myself sitting around a lot of people who weren't quite outgoing, didn't sort of have some of the communication skills. And so I found that to not be a thing that was deterrent for me when it came to talking to customers or when it came to talking to executives or vice presidents. I was able to use that skill of communication to discuss high-level technical information with people who some of the people I was around didn't really want to talk to. uh,
Mm.
so I didn't realize that was a tool for me or a weapon for me until later. But then I was able to take that and sort of mold it into uh, a career being a consultant as well as a technician. And that's how
Mm.
I found out to be a really good piece for me, and
Hmm.
I was able to take my career as a technician to the next level.
And being a consultant, was that the next level that you
Mhm.
took your career to?
Yeah, so at this point, I'm a sales engineer. I started doing just working on routers and fixing issues all day and never talking to anyone. But then, of course, I knew that in my mind, sitting kind of in the basement fixing things wasn't necessarily where I was going to stop.
Hmm.
And the people around me did as well, right? Because I was able to, again, communicate a lot better with some of the executives and the people who needed higher level communication. Didn't necessarily
Hmm.
want to hear all the technical things, but wanted some of that stuff
Hmm.
broken down for them.
Hmm.
And that allowed me to get exposure with those type of people, and it allowed me to move up in my
Hmm.
career.
So did you come into the door knowing where you wanted to take your career?
Not at all.
Really?
Not at
Okay.
all. Yeah. So yeah, like when I first started working in telecom, I just needed a job. I tried to start a business. I was in video production. I went to school for visual communications and multimedia. And I started a company doing video production. I was doing corporate jobs. I was doing weddings. I was shooting music videos, rap videos. I was doing just anything,
Wow.
yeah, anything that could kind of make me some money. And there were just a lot of things I didn't know about business, right? So I was making a
Hmm.
little bit of money, but there were things
Hmm.
I just didn't know about business. I didn't know about taxes. I didn't know about if you wanted to have employees, there were other things that you had to have first. And what it
Yeah.
even meant to have an employee, right?
Yeah.
It's not just, hey, my buddy's coming with me this time, but that person is a reflection of you, right?
Yep.
If you have
Yeah.
a business, so you can't just bring anybody. Sometimes not everybody is kind of ready for that. And so my video production business, it lasted a couple of years before, I kind of had to say, I probably need to learn some things before I go back into
Hmm.
business for myself.
Hmm.
And so at the end of that, I started applying for jobs. One of them was in the telecommunications industry,
Hmm.
and that's kind of where I got my start there.
Hmm.
And at some point within my first year or two working, I said, well, if I just focused and put the same level of energy into this job as I did with my business, then maybe I could do something. And it took off like a rocket. People around me started to notice that, I was focused, that I was driven and determined, and opportunities opened up. Doors started to open up, and people were leading me in a direction. And after I got to a point where that direction started to really blossom for me, I found myself
Hmm.
making more money, making contact with people who could potentially, jumpstart other parts of my career. Then I wanted to
Hmm.
take the reins. That's when I was like,
Mm.
because people were kind of telling me, "Hey, you're really good at this. You're really good at this. Have you tried this?" And so I attribute a lot of that to mentorship, and that's something I try
Mm.
to take into my life now as well with others. But I had really
Yeah.
good mentors.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mhm.
That's really good. So tell me about Little Will. So you had a video production company. So that's
Mhm.
kind of techie. You
Yeah.
need to know technology and equipment. Growing up, were you always interested in these types of things?
So I've always been self-taught. Um,
Okay.
when I first so when I was young, I was around 11 when I first had my first, I guess, technical source of income. I would go and get groceries. I would go and get groceries from one of my neighbors, and she would give me a couple dollars. I put it in a can and save it. Then I
Oh, that
moved.
was you with the DoorDash, huh? Or
I
what
was
is it?
doing.
Instacart?
I was Instacart before Instacart, except for I was walking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
And
Okay.
and then from there, I found it hard to get my haircut. Haircuts at this time were starting to go from being a $5 haircut to being $20 haircuts. And I'm like, I'm not paying that much. And I was about 13 years old, so I decided to start paying to cut my own hair because I was having to get my own haircut. So I learned how to cut my own hair. And friends will help and they say, hey, well, you're getting pretty good on yours. You can cut mine. And then from there, I was able to cut my own hair. But then I started doing $5 haircuts for friends. And so
Mm,
I was,
wow.
I've always kind of been an entrepreneur. And
Yeah, yeah. And it seems like just listening to you talk, it reminds me of this quote, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so when showed that you were ready for more
Mhm.
opportunities came to you. And that's a very progressive mindset to
Yeah.
have. Sometimes people think, they want to sit and wait for the
Yeah.
opportunities, but just listening to what you've shared so far,
Yeah.
like you took steps, and as you took steps, things came towards you and doors opened. So that's
Yeah.
really good. And it leads me to thinking about
Mhm.
quantum leaps. And
Yeah.
so you wrote a book, and
Mhm.
the title of the book is The Quantum Node.
Mhm.
Take us inside that. Like, what drove you to put your vision for the future of networking into a book? And how do you want readers to walk, and what do you want readers to walk away thinking differently about after reading your book?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say it's the same thing. When I love that quote. I'm gonna start using that. When when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? I went through this.
Yes.
I've never done anything like this before, but I did know I had a healthy knowledge of technology, a healthy knowledge of telecommunications, and I'm huge into history. You can ask my kids; they probably get sick of hearing me talk about it, but I'm huge into history
Yeah.
because we're all just standing on somebody's shoulders, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes if you understand that you're standing on someone's shoulders, and especially if those people are, you can relate to those people, then it
Mm-hmm.
allows you to look at yourself differently, right?
Yep.
I
Absolutely.
have a hard time not being the best person I can be, knowing that the people before me, right, were,
Yeah.
you know, Marion Croak or Shirley Ann Jackson, who were innovators and technologists when,
Yes.
you know, you weren't even, when women like that were, you know, African American women were not even supposed to be good in school, right? These were people
Mm-hmm.
graduating with you know, doctorates in engineering, right, from MIT.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when you see that before you, it makes it really hard for you to just say, I'll be mediocre, right?
Yeah.
And so
So true. So true. Oh my goodness.
yeah, and so I really highlighted people like that in the book, and I started with that being the beginning so that
Hmm.
I could use that as a launch board to say, so what do you do next, right? There are all of these technologies coming about, AI, quantum computing, revolutions in energy. Knowing what we know about the past, what can you do with the knowledge that you have now and the energy that you have now to springboard us into the future so that we're not just using technology, we're creating it too. And so that's a
Mm.
really big piece for me. And you know, you see every day there's a, you know, if you look at CNBC or anywhere on the news, there's a new billion-dollar company, million-dollar company, trillion-dollar company. Um, but you notice that, you know, it seems to be sort of a boys club. And so
Yeah.
how is it that we can expand that, bring that out into the masses, make it not only inclusive for usability, but inclusive for creatability. You know,
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
so many different perspectives out there. And so that's what I really want people to take out of the book. And I think that's
Hmm.
really the main theme that you'll see come back around is now that you know, what will you do?
That's a really good question. And I see that behavior in you with the excellence that how you execute in the community. So for those who don't know, of course, we know that Will is behind this podcast. He was the innovator who suggested the podcast, and then he not only suggested it, but he did the work, the technical work, behind the scenes work, setting up the interviews and creating engaging conversations and questions, and creating these moments where it's not just a conversation, but when you listen to the interviews, you're actually learning something. And so I love that concept of what will you do. That's one of the reasons why I do what I do for the Name It community, because leaving legacy. And I love that, in your book, it's not like you have to have this gigantic vision, but there's a part for you to do. And it's just like identifying and finding your part. And so I hope that readers will purchase your book.
Yeah.
Where can they purchase your book?
Yeah, so it's actually so I have it here in a couple local bookstores here in where I'm from in Louisville, Kentucky. But it's also on Amazon. It's really easy. If you just look up the quantum node, nobody else has used that. So it's really,
Yeah,
yeah, it's really easy to find right there on Amazon. And
yeah.
there's a description there and kind of goes into the background of what the book is about. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's a pretty easy read. I know it sounds really technical, but it's a pretty easy read, and it's more historical and I would say inspirational than it is. It gets into some tech. I'm not gonna lie, but it's more history based and inspirational than it is technical.
And I think that in this climate that we're in, where our history is trying to be erased,
Yeah,
having this resource and this tool would be good for
yeah,
us to, so that we cannot forget
yeah,
those who have come before us and the impacts that they have made in society. And
absolutely.
so we thank you for your contribution. I know that you'll continue to have more contributions. So it's clear that you are invested in pulling the next generation into this field. What does that look like on the ground for you, though? And what is one thing that you wish someone had told you when you were just starting out?
Hmm. So, this one of the things on the ground, right, for me is the podcast, right? It was to make sure that you know, information is spread. That's again mentorship and just information spreading is big for me. There have been situations in my life where information has been hoarded, where certain information, wasn't just shareable with certain people, and that's something that in the 21st century and 2026 does not have to happen. You can podcast,
Mm-hmm.
you can get
Mm-hmm.
online and talk into a camera and rant by yourself if you want to, and somebody's going to hear it. And if you're saying
Yeah.
something good, they're gonna listen, and some people might take action. So
Yeah.
that's one big thing for me. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
And what do you wish that someone would have told you
Ah,
when you were starting out?
uh, don't read just for the sake of reading. Read with a
Mm,
purpose. Read with a
mm,
purpose. It took me longer than it should have to understand that, when you're in school, you're not just there because your parents want you to be there. You're not just there
mm-hmm,
because that's what people say you should do.
mm-hmm,
If you're doing it, do it with a purpose. When I first got started, so I not in telecom, but a few years after that, when I first made the venture into network operations, I picked up a couple
mm-hmm.
Cisco books. I just picked them up offline. They were $16 a piece. They're books this thick. There's 3 inches thick. And that's how you study for the CCNA. I sat
Okay.
I sat between phone calls in my regular data center, or not data center, but um call center job, in my regular call center job, between calls, I read with a purpose. The purpose was to take my technical venture to jump into the next level of my technical life. And so
Mm-hmm.
if I knew that when I was 20 instead of 27 or 16 instead of 27, I think I could have hopped into some of the things I'm doing now a little quicker.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly taken a quantum leap, though. When you got started, you kept going and you've made a major impact. And it makes me think of this question, like if they're wondering, what are some good certifications if they want to further develop and grow in the field of technology, what are some recommended certifications you feel will help people move forward or help them advance in their career?
Well, definitely some of the telecom or some of the networking um, certifications, CCNA, CCNP, JNCIA, that's Junos and Cisco, and then there are other ones out there. A lot of cloud things are happening these days. So like AWS
Hmm.
Cloud Practitioner is one I'm actually working on
Hmm.
now. Um,
Hmm.
and then to get away from the tech part, writing certificates, you have to be able to communicate. And no matter how
Hmm.
technical you are, if you cannot talk to a person about what you know, it doesn't mean anything if it's stuck in your head. Or if you can, yeah, if you can do all the work, that's fine, right? If you're just sitting in a router doing configurations, but that's where you'll be. That's where you'll continue to be until you can have
Yeah.
those if you can, until you can communicate those ideas and those
Mm-hmm.
technical pieces to people who are, clients or people who are executives, then it will all that information will just be in your head. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, take a writing certification. I finished the writing certification, and again, I did it with purpose. I did.
Mm-hmm.
I went for through LSU, through my job. They provided a technical writing certification.
Mm-hmm.
I took the certification. It took me 6 months, 8 months to finish. Um, as soon as I was finished, I said, "Well, I have a technical writing certification. What am I going to do now? I'll be the best email writer at my job. Well, no, I'm going to start a blog, right? And then from there, I started my blog, and then I wrote my book, right? And so, do think if you're going to do something, do it with purpose. Don't just
Right.
have your certificate on the wall. What are you going to do with that information? What are you going to do with that
Right.
knowledge? Put it in the work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because a lot of times people will think that, oh, it's the degree
Yeah,
that you have to have, and they help,
yeah,
but
yeah.
for those who cannot go back to school for a 4 year or 5 year degree, certifications will definitely support you in moving further in your career.
Absolutely.
And so you kind of talked about it earlier, but one of the questions I wanted to know was why did you start the Next Up podcast, and what were you hoping listeners would gain by listening to the podcast?
So yeah, I can definitely expound on it. I thought of the podcast first because I just love Namix. I love the mission of Namic, right?
Mm-hmm.
The media and telecom space are spaces that we're heavily in already. You turn on the TV and, it's for multicultural people, right? I'll speak for multicultural, but also for the African American people as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you turn on the TV, you turn on a sports event, who do you see? Right? You turn on a music award show, who do you see? We're all throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't see as much is people like Byron Allen, who own the TV shows, right? Who show the background of the people who are doing all the work to keep these stations, to keep the internet working, right? To keep the news stations working, right? All the people who are in the background who are doing that, who are multicultural, and to not only get people started in that, but also to really highlight those people. I think Namic's been great at that,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that mission should really be put on the forefront. But also, what could we do to expand that? And
Mm-hmm.
so, taking that to the next level, you have a media organization that highlights multiculturalism in media, and a media wing now that actually talks to those people that can go we can go direct to the consumer, right? Where you
Mm-hmm.
have a person who is in the industry, who is working in the industry, who is having, whatever effect that they're having at whatever level, who can not only
Mm-hmm.
talk about how they're affecting the media industry, but also inspire maybe the next generation of people to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're real people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're real people. And I think that's that was really my idea my thought behind why we should do something like this is because they're really amazing people who don't get a chance to tell their story, who have a
Yeah.
great story to tell.
Yep, yeah, yeah. And some of the stories, I know we had someone on recently talking about AI. We had someone on talking about global, basically the music industry
Yeah.
in the movies. Just looking back on the different episodes that you've hosted, what would you say are two episodes that really stuck with you or made a deep impression on you?
Well, those are two really good ones right there. Sierra Warren, with
Hmm.
the conversation on AI. I learned way more than I could hold in my brain that day. She's very intelligent, and has had a lot to say. And then Nikki Howard as well,
Hmm.
was a great episode. Hearing her story and how she got started, how she moved from New York to Atlanta, and really was able
Hmm.
to, really just climb the ranks with a huge company.
Yeah.
what a story. I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Um,
Yeah.
and then I go back further. One of my favorite people, and then also one of my favorite interviews is Lamar Gordon. He's so active in
Oh,
our
yeah.
he's super active in our chapter, like just on a low, just low key, like he'll pop up at an event, and I'm like, that's like the VP of, and it's like, but
Right.
you would never know. He's super laid back, but he was another person who just shares so much great information. And, not only was I able to interview him, hopefully for other people to learn something, but every one of these episodes that I've done and spoke to these amazing people, I've taken
Hmm.
something away from it. I've learned something. So even if nobody ever listens to it, I'm like, I got it. I'm gonna go back and listen to it
Yeah.
again because that was a great episode.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, I would say that those are a few of my favorite episodes right there. Some of the more recent ones, and one that we did as one of our first interviews.
Yeah, I love listening to people's journey. You can relate to a lot of things when you hear a person's story,
Mhm.
especially with the focus on, African American
Oh yeah.
and multicultural.
Hmm.
Um, you can be inspired and motivated to pursue what your vision is because you hear these stories of other people who faced opposition,
Yeah.
had challenges, not just physical things, but mental things, emotional things. For Nikki Howard to
Yeah.
relocate to an entirely different state where her family is limited, but she still pushed through
Yeah.
and worked her way up into the legal role
Yeah.
within the company,
Yeah.
so it is doable. So one of the things that makes this episode so special is because this is going to be the last episode of Next Up with Namick. Do you want to tell the listeners why?
Yeah, yeah. So of course, it's very bittersweet. We've been going for most of 2 years now, and I mean, it's just been an
Hmm.
amazing journey. And so many people have gotten to tell their story, and so many people have really inspired me, and I hope have inspired other people. So it's definitely bittersweet. Bitter because of the end, but sweet, also sweet because I'll actually be taking a little sabbatical to actually work on a second book, and take some time with my family. And so we'll be spending a little bit of time overseas and kind of traveling a little bit. And so I'm really excited about that. Anxious and nervous. I've never done anything like this, and I don't think I know anyone who's ever done anything like this, but I definitely want
Hmm.
to, experience this, and just try to hopefully still, even with this being a motivating piece for other people maybe to take that step. So
Yeah.
yeah, that will be the reason that next up will kind of end there. And maybe when I get back, I can maybe come back and maybe tell the story at some point in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully one of our community members have a vision and they
Yeah,
want to, do a podcast. I think that just a sidebar, Namick is a great
yeah,
platform for anyone who wants to develop their leadership skills. And you certainly have grown as a leader. I mean, when I remember when I first met you, you were kind of quiet, but you were
yeah,
powerful, but very encouraging. You always had good ideas. And just to see you innovate and create this podcast and then keep it going for a couple of years, we certainly will miss like
yeah,
the contributions that you've made to moving the chapter forward.
yeah,
However, it is a really great opportunity for
yeah,
you and your family. When you first told me about this, like it lit something up in me. I even shared it with my 10-year-old, and she was like, "Yeah." I said, "We're going to go do something like that too." She said, "Yeah, I want to go." And she
yeah,
told me somewhere she wanted to go.
yeah,
But you don't really hear too many. I know that people are doing it, but you
sure,
don't get to hear it. So it was
yeah,
very inspiring as a black man,
yeah,
as a black father
yeah,
of, daughters,
yep,
and you taking the lead,
hmm,
and allowing your family to have this experience, something
yeah,
that will stick with them
yeah,
for the rest of their life. Like
yeah,
you're
absolutely,
making quantum impact. I keep using that word because it is so necessary. It's so
Yeah.
befitting, for
Hmm.
our conversation, but you're
Yeah.
making quantum leaps
Yeah.
and you're doing some excellent work professionally and personally. So I really do hope that you are proud of yourself as a
Thank you.
man.
Thank you.
I hope that you're proud of yourself as an author, as a
Mm.
father, as a husband, um, because you're doing some really great things, and your name will not go down and be forgotten
Thank
because you're leaving your footprint, and you're
you.
bringing other people behind you. You're bringing them up the ladder, and so I
Yeah.
say kudos to you
Thank you.
for all that you have done, where you started to where you are now. And I do hope that you celebrate yourself because, sometimes we can get caught up in, I got to do more, I got to do
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
But taking that moment and just saying, wow, look what I've done.
Hmm.
Look
Yeah.
what I've accomplished. Like, we need to have those moments to really be in awe of ourselves. Like, I'm pretty sure you had a lot of challenges that you faced, and mentally, emotionally, physically,
Oh yeah.
psychologically,
Yeah.
a lot of doubts that you had to overcome,
Hmm.
but you still pushed through and you published your book. It's available for people to read and gain knowledge, but then also take the torch
Yeah.
and it lights a fire in us to say, okay, what am I going to contribute to society, to this world?
Yeah.
And so I say thank you, Will. It's been
No,
a
thank you.
pleasure working with you. Will has always, anytime we have a conversation, he's always willing to help. Whatever you need, Cynthia, let me know. And he does it. He's a
Yeah.
very integral man. I'm just gonna give you your flowers. Like, you
Thank
and you do an excellent job. Like, you have a spirit of excellence,
thank you.
and that's noteworthy, And so I wish you all the best in everything that you are doing. And hopefully, when you get the second book out, we can have a conversation, with you to learn more about that book.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I, I want you all to make sure that you support Will and purchase his book on Amazon. If you're in Louisville, Kentucky, he'll list the bookstores that his book is located at in that state. But let's get behind him. As an entrepreneur myself, I know that as you give, you make room to receive. So for those who have a vision and they want to do something, supporting someone else's vision guarantees the support you'll need for your vision. And
Abs-
so I'm gonna get off my soapbox. Are there
I
any
love it. I love
parting
it.
words that you would like to say
Well, I'm gonna just
or
give you your
anything?
I'm gonna give you your flowers real quick and say that, same if when I met you it was the same situation. Energy. You gave our chapter rocket fuel. I tell everybody, you gave our chapter rocket fuel, it made sure we were on top of our stuff. And so, yeah, I got nothing but great things to say about you too, Cynthia. So I really
Awesome.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as parting words, I would just say, the same thing I tell myself every day. I read a lot, and I love, like I said, I love history, and it's really hard to know some of the challenges that people have been through and how they've made things better for you, and then not want to do something about it. So, hey, if you're out there and you're listening to this, or you just finished, getting a certification, you just finished your degree, don't stop there. I know you'll be tempted to say, I got my degree. Okay, now it's time to go get me a job. The world is changing. The world is changing.
Hmm.
Think
Hmm.
about stay quick on your feet. Don't let, you know, ideals of yesterday dictate your life. You can actually you have power. You have power in this. And you hear a lot of people talking about how the world's changing because of AI and jobs and all these different things. You are not powerless. I will tell you, and I will tell you, and I will tell you, people before you have seen very difficult days, and
Yes.
you will make it through this. And not only will you make it through this, but if you really put your mind to it, you can create a world where not only you succeed, but you help others as well. So my parting words would be take take the torch and run with it and see what you can do.
Yes. Yes. Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself. Yeah.
Well, well, thank you for making time to allow me to interview you
No, thank
and
you.
to share your wonderful news with the community.
Yeah.
We do wish you all the best, and ta-ta for now.
Thank you, Cynthia. Bye-bye.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you found it encouraging and insightful. With over 15 chapters nationwide, NAMIC is passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the communications industry, with a wider range of professional development opportunities, networking events, and leadership programs. NAMIC is dedicated to empowering multi-ethnic diversity in the media and communications industry. Members gain access to valuable resources, industry insight, and an incredible community of like-minded professionals. For more information, go to NAMIC.com or to the NAMIC St. Louis chapter at NAMICSt.Louis.com or LinkedIn at LinkedIn.com/NAMIC St. Louis. Thank you and have a wonderful month. See you next time.